All right, we're going to get started here. I'm going to answer our first question that we have tonight from Dimitri. So here we go. Okay, we have a wonderful question from our student Dimitri about reading notes at the same time. Not so much a question, but I have a problem while reading notes for the right hand and left hand at the same time, and assuming you're asking me for my advice on that. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to obviously be familiar with how to read notes on the treble clef and how to read notes on the bass clef. If you're still struggling with reading each of the clefs separate, then you definitely want to keep practicing until you get them really, really easy. One thing I recommend you do here is if you go to a website called music, all one word, .net, musictheory.net, it should come up with some exercises. So click on the exercises up top, and then click on note identification. And you can customize this exercise. It actually doesn't show you because my picture is kind of covering it up. But if you click on customize this exercise, it comes up with like another window of setting up the practice assignment. So you obviously want to, when you're first starting out, select 0 key signatures. You actually want accidentals off to begin. I guess you could select key signature only. Okay, there we go, and I think that'll do it. And then you want to select the range that you want to do. So if you're just starting out, you probably want to keep within range of the clef. So make sure to go into the settings first and set it up right. And practice the treble clef first, and then the bass clef. And then once you have those mastered, you can try the grand staff, or you can do both at the same time. And then just go through these and practice these until you get them 100%. In addition to just figuring out what the answer is, you also want to find the answer on the piano. So this note is obviously what? A, right? And you want to make sure you can get 100% going through. G, you got E, you got F. Be nice if they gave us a treble clef one. You got A again. Oh, and then I didn't set the range, so you might have to go into the options to make sure you have the range set correctly for both. So anyway, go through that practice assignment. If you don't have the treble clef and bass clef mastered, like you can get them lightning quick without any problems. If you don't have it that far along, when you start to put them hands together, it's going to be a bit tricky because you're really going to be playing catch up with your mind and really being like, okay, is this an F or is this a D, or is this treble clef or bass clef? You want to know those things separately really, really well first. But let's assume that you do know how to read music really, really well with both hands. But when it comes to putting hands together, you're really, really struggling. So let's just take a look at an example that I have here for us today. So let me, I guess that works with my... Okay, so here we have the minuet in G. Now, when you're first learning something hands together, you're going to want to learn something quite a bit easier than this. But one of the main, I can still give you a couple of tips here. Let me change this back to the piano view here. So, tip number one is what? What do you think? It's the number one tip I always give everybody all the time. Hopefully you remember. It's play slowly, right? Play really, really slowly. Remember that when you're playing, excuse me. Remember that when you're playing hands together, you are lining up notes in columns, vertical columns. So this first, right when I come in here, I'm hitting a D up here, and then I am hitting a chord down below. So, and you want to hit them all at the same time. Now, you don't want to start and then start playing really, really fast with one hand. You seriously want to play it at a snail's pace. It might seem frustrating at first, but honestly, this is how you make the most progress when you're playing. I had somebody in the comments today had a similar problem, and I gave them similar advice. And say I'm playing this slow and I'm messing up. What should I do? I should speed it up? No, I should slow it down even further. And it really helps because I really know really well my right hand or my treble clef and my bass clef really easily. So I'm not going through and I'm not like, okay, I have a D up here and then I'll say like a G. What is that note again? Let me think about it. B. And what is that one? Oh, a D. If it's taking you that long to line up your hands, then you really need to go back and you really need to practice the treble clef and bass clef with the little assignment I gave you a minute ago. And then you also want to perhaps learn pieces hands separate at first and then put them hands together. So that's another little tip for you. So those are some ways I remedy the situation of not being able to really keep up reading both the treble clef and bass clef at the same time. Remember to master them separately first, and then when you do start to put them together, make sure you pick an easy song and play it real fast. No, real slow. And if you want other two-handed piano playing tips, I'll make sure to put a link in the description and also a card somewhere once the video is posted. Okay, another one of our great live stream students asks, is it a bad habit to use the fingers of your own desire as you like instead of going according to the lessons? And I'm smiling big right now because the answer is yes, it is very bad. Please, please, please pay attention to the fingering. Scale. Let me use a scale as an example for what I'm going to talk about right now. So the reason finger numbers are important is that they help you basically be able to play up and down the keyboard the most effective way, right? So if you just use any old fingering, your fingers are constantly going to be tripping over each other. So just using a very simple example is the key of C, the scale of C, C major, is from one C up to the next C, all the white keys in between. If I just use any old fingering, say I just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see once I get to 5 right there to that G, I still have more notes to play. So this fingering is not working out, right? Because I have to do something like bending my hand this way. One thing I tell younger students, because for some reason they think it's acceptable to do that, your palms should never be facing up when you play piano. At least I can't think of a single time that they should be. So if you're doing something like this, you know you got it wrong. So the C major scale should be played with fingers 1, 2, 3, and then you pivot underneath to have finger 1 there. Well, just playing up that far, you can see that we now have enough fingers to finish up the scale. So I can play it now fluidly. Here's what it was with just any old fingering. Here there's a gap there because my fingers just couldn't quite make it. Now say you want to go up 2 octaves and play, another set of the scale. Well, once you get up to this 4th note, you're going to, instead of playing 5 there and doing the not so good thing of having your palms facing up, once you get to finger 4 here, make another cross, and then you'll make the cross at the same place there. And doing that, just that little adjustment, I can play up and down the scale very easily. Now keep in mind, I've also practiced the scale a lot, so I know what the notes are and everything else. So the answer to that question is very, very important that you stick to the fingering that you are given. I have a couple of lessons on fingering that for piano that I will include in the description, and also, of course, a card somewhere will pop up once I get this video posted. Okay, our awesome student Carol asks, having trouble practicing extended scales, I assume, multiple octaves and things like that. I either have too many fingers, not enough fingers, and forget the sharps. I go slow, but lose my way. Should I say the notes out loud as I do this? Well, if you feel like it would help you, I never did that when I was learning scales, but if you feel like you're having trouble keeping track of what notes are sharp or flat, then I would, give it a try. See if that works out for you. What I would do is, I would simplify your process for practicing scales. Let's get this view in here. So when you're practicing scales, what a lot of students will do, and which I kind of find is a mistake, And fast learners do this the most because they feel like, okay, I can learn C scale, no problem, G scale, D scale, A scale. These are easy. But what'll happen is once you get all like 22 main scales under your belt, major and minor, you'll start getting confused between them because you really didn't spend enough individual attention for each scale. So what I recommend you do to remedy this problem is pick 2 scales a week to work on and to really master rather than playing them all through, because you're probably getting confused because there's just so much information, and because scales are almost so similar to one another and the fingering, that it's really important that, like I said, you spend the individual attention on each scale. So for example, week 1 this week, what I recommend you do is start with C major and make sure you have that scale down, both hands. And then, like you said, you were playing more extended scales, so I assume that means multiple octaves. Play the scale slow, obviously. And that worked out fine. But just keep playing that scale over and over for the week. Don't add more than one other scale. So maybe start with C and then go for G, because that's in your order, the circle of fifths. Just meaning that this next scale is going to be the one with 1 sharp. You're going in the order in which you're adding the sharps in. You're probably not going to want to start doing the chromatic practice that we've talked about in some of the lessons, meaning you're going to start with the C major scale, and then you're going to go up to the C sharp major scale, D. Now, you want to do that once you've kind of mastered them a bit, but when you're first learning them, just go in order from the one that starts with 0 sharp, 0 flats, then the one with 1 sharp, and the one with 2 sharps. So not learn, I know you know your scales already, but re-practice 2 scales a week, only 2, and play those 2 scales like every day, every time you practice throughout the week. And this will help you get individual attention for that scale. That will help you better commit the scale and the fingering and the notes to your long-term memory. Because right now, like I said, I think you're just trying to tackle them all at once, or too many of them all at once, and you're getting confused between each one. So just simplify it down and see how that works out, and let me know in the comments. So I'd love to hear how that worked out. All right, and if you want to learn more about scales, of course, I have more lessons that I'll link you to around once I have the video posted. Okay, working through some other questions here. Okay, Mal says, I'm a beginner and I'm really struggling using both hands. So if you missed the question, I answered a question right in the beginning of the live stream about really making sure that you have your treble clef notes mastered, your bass clef notes mastered first, because honestly, when you put something hands together, that's really where the concentration should go, the coordination between both hands. And having your notes really down pat to where you can get them lightning quick really helps, because it's just one less thing you're going to have to think about. Because, like I said, your brain power is really going to go into that coordination between the 2 hands. You want to start out learning very easy pieces, maybe some nursery rhymes, or like Itsy Bitsy Spider or something like that. Something very simple with both hands, maybe even Happy Birthday or something like that. And you want to play the piece slowly. Very slow. So the number one thing that I think can help you with two-handed playing, other than mastering both clefs separately, is to play your pieces very slowly. And I'm saying you really can't play them slow enough. You may be feeling like, oh my goodness, this is going at a snail's pace, this isn't any fun to play. But you're actually, in the long run, not even the long run, within a week, you're going to make a lot more progress practicing slowly than you will powering through it. This is especially a problem when students practice pieces they're already familiar with, like a popular pop song or something like that, or a rock song. They want to play it at full speed. That's a big mistake. So, slow it way down. Make sure you have right hand and left hand mastered first. And then when you play a two-handed piece, when you're learning that piece, you may even want to learn the left hand part first, and then do the right hand part first, then the left hand separately, and then put them together very, very slowly. Because like I said, all your brain power is going to go into the coordination between both hands. The better you know the notes in your right hand, the better you know your notes in your left hand, the better off you're going to be. Welcome out, Dimitro. Now we got some people can play great by hearing. Okay. And they don't know how to read music. What do you think about that? That's a great question. I don't think I'll make that an official question because there's not enough to talk about, but I will let you know what I think about it. That's an interesting question. Now, I do get that a lot. Like, I've known some students who play almost exclusively by ear, and some that play almost exclusively by reading music. I recommend that actually you try to take a middle road. Chances are you're going to be better at one or the other, whether it's reading music or listening with your ears. I happen to be really strong on being able to read music and reading them in intervals and things. I've been doing it for a long time. And I'm very strong at music analysis, being able to pick out what chords are going on, things like that. This is based on all the things on the channel. And you can actually see that on the channel, that I put out a lot more videos on this than I do about ear training. And don't get me wrong, I know how to ear train somebody, but I'm very much stronger on the theory, brain, cerebral part than anything. But you really, honestly, if you're strong in one area or the other, that means you should be spending a bit more time, myself included, on the thing that you're not as good at, because they really work together to help you learn a piece. I mean, if you are very strong with your ears and you depend on your ears to learn all your pieces, well, the problem with that is if you have something a bit more complicated, like, I don't know, a Bach, a Bach sonata, a Beethoven sonata, or a Chopin prelude or something like that, you're going to want to see all the individual notes and how they move between one another. It also helps with music theory a lot to be able to read music and understand what's going on there. But the ear training and being able to play by ear is also very important, because really, if you're playing a wrong note, first of all, you're going to know it right away. If your ears are good, you're also it's just going to give your brain more information to go by when you're learning pieces. So you can read the notes off the page, but you can be like, I kind of heard this sort of thing going on there. So it just gives you a little bit more information to grab a hold of. Chords the same way. If you're trying to figure out the chords of a piece, having well-developed ears helps a lot with that, because you can be like, okay, I hear a minor chord here and a major chord here, and I hear that this chord is, a perfect fifth above the other one, stuff like that. So my answer is that both are pretty important, and that you're going to be better at one or the other, but spend more time on the other one, so you develop both skills pretty well. I personally do need to spend more time developing my ears. That's just a confession I have to make. Okay, our amazing student in our classroom, our live stream here, Adria asks, question: I know I'm playing piano to practice slowly, as I mention all the time, but like me, I do things fast by nature. How does one practice slowly when they do things fast by nature? Well, there's two main things. One is cognitive therapy, I guess I could call it, where you just try to become more aware of the speed of your playing. But, that's probably not that great of a solution. So let me give you another one. The other answer is something called the metronome. And let me show you that a metronome, let me bring it up here. So honestly, these days, if you just type metronome into Google, it brings up a metronome. So you have no excuse for not being able to find one or something like that. Unfortunately, this metronome doesn't play, but I do have one over here on the side. I think that will do the trick. Let me bring this up. Hold on. Okay, so once you click go on the metronome, it's going to basically give you a little pulse. Bump, 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 bump. And you want to be lining up your notes with that pulse, right? So this will actually help control the speed in which you're playing. This might be a little fast, so I'm going to turn it down maybe to 80, which means I have to turn it down to 80 over here. So let me turn it down. Okay, there we go. As you can probably start to hear that the change, there's a change in tempo going on, the speed. So now it's going a bit slower. So say I'm practicing my scale. You want one note for each of these clicks. Bump, bump. You want to feel the beat first too. Bump, 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 bump. And you want to practice with the metronome more and more if you have the tendency of starting to play way, way faster than you're supposed to. Let me turn this off because it is kind of drowning out my talking a little bit. So the metronome is really the number one thing I recommend in terms of tools in doing this. And also if you're not using the metronome, because obviously sometimes after you've played a piece for a while, you don't want to use the metronome anymore. You really want to be cognizant in your head, really thinking, am I speeding up? Am I playing too slow? Another thing that I also recommend that I just thought of is that if you're learning a piece, listen to the recording of that piece a few times to kind of get it in your head on how fast the piece should go, and then set the metronome to that. But as you listen to the piece again and again and again, you're going to get a better feel on how fast it should go. So when you play it on your own, you should be like, well, that sounds a bit faster than the recording. So you'll know how to slow down. So those are just some of the quick tips I have for solving the problem, like if you have the tendency of playing way too fast. And then, of course, I have a lot of other rhythm videos that I will include in the description and post some links around once I get this lesson posted. Okay, some people are commenting that they're finding the lesson I did on intervals very, very helpful. If you don't know, when you're learning how to read music, a faster way to do it, first of all, I do recommend learning how to read each individual note first. But another faster way to do it is start by using intervals, which is the distance between notes, to figure out what notes you are on. If you type in how to read music faster into YouTube, you'll find my lesson on it. Okay, Barbara says, I didn't pay attention to vocal music reading lessons in elementary school because I could sing by ear. Then in high school, reading music was required to be in chorus. Yep. So I missed the freshman year. Oh, I see. Yeah, both are pretty important. The Mead's catcher is when both staves have the same clef on them. Is that what that's called? The Mead scratcher? Is that really what that's called, or are you making a pun of some sort? Is when both staves have the same clef on them. Yeah, that can be really confusing for some. Okay, Barbara says, I took music theory to catch up and loved the course and the teacher. Following year, I got in a course and took the next year of music theory. Okay. I practiced for 50 minutes each day, Sunday to Sunday, for 4 months. That's really good, Gregory. That should really, really help your progress. At Rich never knew about them until one of Tim's lessons. Why didn't my other teachers teach this? You know what? A lot of teachers don't teach that. I don't know why. My teacher growing up never taught me that either. And he was a pretty good piano teacher. He's pretty well known in the area. People really liked him overall. But he never taught that. I didn't learn about intervals until I was in college. And it was strange because it's like not like it's a real high level thing to understand. So I like to practice intervals with students pretty early on. Thanks, Tim, says Dimitri. You're very welcome. Tim knows things other teachers don't, which is what makes him awesome. Thank you very much, Adria. We got Julio says in minuet and G, I noticed that there are instances that you'll play staccato. And do you also let go of the pedal when you reach that point? Great question. It's not indicated on the sheet. Yes. So whenever you're playing staccato, you do want to lift up on the pedal, because if you think about it, if you put down the pedal, it kind of destroys the staccato. Okay, Rich also asks, I also wondered if there is a rest in one of the clefs. Do you stop the pedal? The answer is yes, you do stop the pedal, because that's what the rests. Yeah, so yeah, you do want to lift up the rests. Or I was thinking about if there is any instance where you wouldn't, but I don't think so. Hey, Caleb's here. How you doing, Caleb? So happy you could join us out in the classroom today. Julio says, I'm not sure if you half pedal it or you let go of it entirely. I would let go of it entirely. There might be some instances. Hold on. Yeah, I wouldn't do half pedal. I would let go of it entirely. Actually, you know what's crazy is my keyboard pedal doesn't do half pedal. I discovered. Now, pianos do. Most pianos do, but this one, because they are more of a mechanical kind of thing, whereas the keyboard pedal, for at least mine, I'm sure there are better ones you can get, but mine's either on or off. It's a digital function rather than an analog. Okay, singing the letter names out loud, I believe, will help me read music better. It very well could, Barbara, so give that a try. Let me know how that works, honestly, because I haven't really tried that a whole lot. And if it is effective, I would like to tell my other students about it as well. Thanks, Tim. I was trying to do about 4 different scales at the same time. It was a mess. I only do 2 a week now. Yeah, so simplify it down. If you're ever having trouble, like where you're learning something on piano and you're like, man, I'm just, it's a little maybe overwhelming, or maybe you're not overwhelmed, but you're just, things are getting mixed up. Always simplify it down. Okay, our student Barbara asks, how do accidentals affect intervals? Really good question. So if you don't know, interval is the distance between 2 different notes. So if you had a note and the same note, that would be a unison, or a 1, you could call it, I guess. And then a second is the next note, 1, 2. You count all the notes involved. Next is a third, 1, 2, 3. And then fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. What's the other name for an eighth? Well, an octave, right? You've probably heard that from your piano teacher if you've taken lessons before. Anything about the word oct means 8, pretty much, like an octopus has 8 tentacles. Okay, so how do accidentals affect the intervals? Well, for every interval, pretty much, there's 2 different types, or maybe even more than that. But for instance, for a second, right, from C to D, that's a second. Well, you can have something called a minor second, which is where you take the D and you flat it to D flat. So now you have a minor second. By definition, a minor second is only a half step away from each other, like that. Now say if you have a third. By the way, the first one's called a major second. I've only been calling them seconds so far, but there are other names to them. So you got major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and then perfect octave. Now, with a third, say I flat the E to an E flat, well, it changes from an E major to, or a major third, to a minor third. Now, if you take a fourth and you flat it, there is no minor fourth, and the reason behind that is because that just makes a major third again. However, you can have an augmented fourth right there, also a diminished fifth. So I'm going to make a lesson purely on these different ones, but just to answer this question quickly is depending on it also depends on what key that you're in. So that's why I need to really go through and explain this in more detail at some point. It really it can change the quality of the interval. It's not going to change the number so much, but it will change the quality from a major interval to a minor. Just know that seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths are major intervals. They can, and then when you subtract one from them or lower them with a flat, they become minor intervals. However, 4 and 5 are strange because they are what's called perfect consonances. And when you flat them or sharp them, they become diminished or augmented, not minor or major. It's kind of a strange thing you'll have to get used to. All right, so that's my answer for that. I will make another lesson on that at some point, maybe like an all-in-one intervals lesson, basically going into detail about these. I'm going to link you to a sight reading website here. And basically, you want to scroll down and click on Easy Sight Reading. And here you go. This is actually some perfect examples for this. These are these are actually for sight reading, which is the practice of reading new pieces of music all the time to really get better at reading new patterns and notes. But what I would do is I would actually use this for your purpose, which is playing a very simple piece, reading both notes at the same time. This is seriously how easy you should start out with when you start to read both hands together. So actually start out and read through all of these. I think there's about 40 exercises in total. A lot of them are easy because they share the same rhythm. You're not going to have to go just like that and really race around to figure out what's happening. You can really go nice and slow between each one. And like I said, go really, really slow. Through them. So let me link you to those. So just go through these, practice them. If you need to, right hand first, left hand second, and then put them together fast. No, very, very slow. So let me link you up to those. Okay, we are in the last 10 minutes. So unfortunately, I am not going to be being able to answer everybody's question, I think, here. If these are all questions. I mean, if they're comments, I'll be able to go through them real quick. But I'll answer Rich's here. Rich says, Tim, can you recommend something I should be learning? Kind of hit a wall. Recently learned whole note scales, modes. Now I'm kind of stuck not knowing what I should be tackling next. Let me think about this for a minute. What I would start learning if I were you, Rich, is going through... that might be too far. Oh, yeah. Okay. What I recommend you do... because I think you're ready for improving your finger dexterity and your coordination between both hands. And I assume, because we've talked about it many times, actually, I know you've practiced the hand in, maybe even some of the charity exercises. If you haven't done those, look those up and practice them. I can link you to them if you want. But what I recommend you do now, Rich, is continue practicing all your scales and your modes and things like that. Honestly, you don't have to practice those all the time, but it is important to know what they are. It is important to know like how to make a Mixolydian scale or something. I think that's the way it goes, or something like that. And then you also want to make sure you know all of your chords, major, minor, diminished, augmented, major seventh, minor seventh, dominant seventh, half diminished seventh, fully diminished seventh, things like that, maybe even some suspended chords. So make sure you know about those. If you don't know about those, send me an email because it will be too long for me to explain here on what those are about. But in terms of practice, I want you to start practicing this because I think this will really, really help you. Is you want to find, we'll find it together right now. I think it's pretty easy. Type in Bach Inventions. If you haven't played, and I doubt you've learned them all if you have learned one of them, because there are 15, it looks like. So type in Bach Inventions PDF, and it'll take you to imslp.org. And let's see. Okay, where's a good sheet music here for this? All of these kind of are not good. Okay, here we go. All right, I think this one's good. I have to accept the disclaimer and wait. Oh, they don't make me wait anymore. Awesome. Okay, I recommend you start learning these from invention number 1. to at least the first 4 inventions. So what these are is these are a great stepping stone into Bach preludes, which I think might be a little bit tough, other than the first one. The first one's, this one. That one's easy enough to learn. But start with these inventions, because if you've learned all the Hanon and things like that, and you're looking to improve your ability to play up and down the piano, you definitely want to check out these inventions next. Now I'm going to play this real slow because I haven't played these inventions in forever, but and as you can see, it's really good at switching between the activity between both hands. Oh, now I'm messing up the notes because I'm talking. But anyway, it does a really good job at switching up the activity between both hands, because as you can see from the beginning, I had 16th notes in the right hand, and now I'm playing 8th notes in the right hand with 16ths in the left hand, and with a similar pattern. So they trade off this kind of pattern called a theme. Yeah, that's the main theme. But it's a really, really good way to develop your finger dexterity much, much beyond something like Hanon exercises where you're playing the same thing at the same time. These are more like pieces, and will get you ready for Bach preludes, because you really want to start learning more Bach. Whether you're a big Bach person or not, I'm not sure. And I always wonder why my teacher or professor made me play so much Bach. And that's because Bach is really, really solid at developing dexterity, coordination, fingering. You're really going to have to put your fingering to the test for these. Seriously. So, and one thing I would start doing, Rich, if you're not doing already, is start writing in your fingering for difficult spots, and always using that fingering that you wrote down and not deviate from it. This will help you develop really, really good habits in terms of what fingers to use. And you'll be surprised over time, as you learn a bunch of these, you'll be playing a section of music and you'll be like, wow, I just already kind of know what fingering feels good for this. And that's because it's like all in your mind and your muscle memory and things like that. So I would definitely learn a couple of these first, and let me know how these go for you, because you're going to have some questions about them, I think, with the fingering. And then you can, of course, feel free to email me. If anybody ever has a question about a piece they're working on, and whether it's fingering or something, make sure you take a screenshot of it and send it to me. That way I can get back to you lightning quick with an answer. If I have to look up something first, it is a possibility I might not get to your question because of that. Only because it takes me a lot of time, and I might not find it, or I might not find exactly what you're talking about. So if you take a snapshot of it and send it to me, I'll know exactly what to do. But that's where I would go from there. Luke has a good question. Do I have a video posting schedule? So what happened? The answer is yes. Go to pianolessonsontheweb.com, where all my courses are, of course, but right now we are talking about the community section. So click on the community tab, scroll down, and we have a calendar of what we're talking about and when. So this is how it works. On Fridays and Sundays, we have our live stream. On Friday, we have our main lesson of the week, and Sunday, I have the question and answer session. What you can expect is and then I put out the recordings of these. I cut them out, cut out like the fluff and everything like that, and then I post them as lessons. So basically, you can expect a posting of the lesson on the following days from there. So you can, if the live stream's Fridays and Sundays, you can expect a new video on Saturday and Monday, the following day of those. So Saturday and Monday. But I will, I'm going to put out a more concrete schedule so people can follow along. Because if you don't attend the live streams all the time, and if you're new to the channel, you're probably not going to know that. So I'll figure out a way to clarify that. But you can expect the live streams Fridays and Sundays, and then the recordings to be released the next day. Okay, Glissando. This will be the last big question I answer, only because we are approaching the hour here. Okay, let's take a look here. Okay, so doing a glissando, right, which is like that. And I wouldn't be as concerned with breaking the keys as breaking your fingers when doing this, because it can really feel really weird. And I've had students before, not ones that have played for me, but ones at music school. One time I had to play a recital, and there's blood all over the piano keyboard because somebody did a glissando, and they got like a piece of skin caught on one of the keys, and it like ripped or something. And anyway, they bled all over the keyboard. It was wonderful. So what you want to do is, first of all, determine which direction you're going, whether it's ascending or descending down that way. You always want your fingernails to face whatever direction you're going. So say I'm ascending, going up that way. I want to kind of, karate chop down on the keys. Not all the way like this, but not all the way like this either. You want to have it to where your fingernails are shielding you from the keys, and they're actually creating the glissando going up. You don't want to press down too hard because that'll create more friction between the keys, but you don't want to be too light either, or you just won't get any sound. So it's a happy medium, and you want your fingernails facing whichever way you want to go. Just like that. So that's a beginner's look on how to do that. Okay. So you make your videos that you post during live streams. Yeah. So when I do the live stream, that's actually the video. And then the recording of the live stream, or like the edited version of the live stream, is the lesson that I put out. I have problems with chord progressions. Remember the chord names and next in the progression. Okay, so Himbe asks, I almost called you Harambe. Himbe asks, I have questions about, or I have problems with chord progressions and remembering what chord comes next in the progression. Okay, what I recommend for this, I'll answer this quickly, is go through and first pick an easy chord progression. A 1, 4, 5, 1 progression is the easiest. Start out in the keys and play these in all your keys. So start out with a simple progression and play them in every key. So 1, 4, 5, 1. I was able to keep track of it pretty easy because it's the key of C. Then maybe I'll do it in the key of G. 1, 4, and then remember in key of G there's an F sharp there. Back to 1, and then try it maybe in the key of D. 1, 4, 5, 1. So you want to pick a simple chord progression and play it in all keys. And you want to do this before you start playing more complicated chord progressions, because you really want to get the simple ones down first. And you also want to, what I would do actually, before you play the chord progression in that key, play the scale of that key first, because the scale is a great representation of the notes that all exist in that key. So, in the key of C, I know that all the chords are going to have all white keys. So 1, 4, 5, 1. If I'm doing the key of D and I play the D major scale, I know there are 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So whenever one of my chords has one of those notes in it, I know that it's sharped instead. So 1, 4, 5, 1. So simple chord progression, go through it in all the keys. If you and I would do maybe, like I was talking about, I think with Carol earlier, and practicing too many scales. At least it was either that or Real Winslet Fan. Practicing too many scales at once. Simplify it down. Think of the easiest chord progression you can do, the 1, 4, 5, and maybe just for like the first week, do it in 2 keys, the key of C and the key of G. And make sure you can do that super, super well. And then each week add so many other keys that you think you can handle. And go from there. That'll give you a better idea on the layout of each key. Rather than saying like, okay, I'm going to play a 1, like a 5 of 5, 5, 1 or something like that, which is a little bit more complicated. And then trying to do that in different keys. So start simple and work your way out that way. Okay. Whew. All right. So I apologize if I didn't get to any of the last questions of the day. It looks like I got through 99% of them, though. So, whew, we did it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for a great night attending our live stream once again, being an awesome part of our classroom and really contributing today. Everybody did a wonderful job asking questions, and, it really, really helped keep the discussion and the everything going. So we are meeting again on Friday, where I'm going to be talking to as an introduction to the blues scale and soloing. So that's the blues scale that I play pretty much all the time. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Julio says, can you also use the tip of your fingers to do it? Yeah. Well, you can use the tip of your fingers. I would use your fingernails, though, because honestly, if you use the tip of your fingers, that's going to rub against the keys. For me, that's like really grating. That hurts. That hurts. They suffered for art, says Gary. All right, let's see. A good night, Real Winslet fan. Thanks for coming. Have a good evening and see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Oh, and if you're interested in learning a lot more, if you like the YouTube channel and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to learn these topics in a lot more detail, but also I want to learn a lot of topics that Tim hasn't covered on the YouTube channel yet, you definitely want to head over to pianolessonsontheweb.com. Of course, I have a link in the description for you to check out, where I have over 20 courses I designed to help you learn much more about music, and also give you a review of the basic topics if you're starting from the beginning. It includes instructional videos like the ones you see here on the channel, but it also includes practice assignments and worksheets, online activities, and a lot of other things to enhance your learning. You can use code YouTube during checkout to get an additional 15% off. So make sure you go over there, check that out. The link is in the description for you. Let me give you a link here now, and then I'll say goodnight to everybody. All right, so there you go. All right, thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Thanks again, Carol, for the super chat, and everybody for your support, whether you are, you were bombing away on the questions today, or you're sitting back relaxing, enjoying the lessons. I appreciate everybody being here. So thanks, everybody, and have a great night. I'll talk to you on Friday.